What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bulls Latest. Your host, Matt Johnson here. Going to kick off this show recapping another tough loss for the Bulls. They just can't get off the schneid here, losing 125-120 in a tight one to the Orlando Magic, a game the Bulls were in the whole way, had multiple double-digit leads in the first half. This will be the Bulls' fourth straight loss. It'll wrap up the short road trip. The Bulls go winless on the road trip, 0-4. So they'll look to get back to home cooking against the Brooklyn Nets in a couple of days here. Coby White, and this was an injury that going into this one, when previewing this game, I wanted to watch for. He was not a go in this one. It was believed that he would initially get the nod in this contest. As Billy Donovan previously stated, this will be the last of kind of the stretch in terms of the back-to-back over the weekend that Coby White will be limited. So the guardrails are off in terms of his minutes going forward. Not to say, again, that he's going to play every back-to-back they have or every single night, but he should be out there more consistently than he's been to start the year. I think the ramp-up period is over for Coby White. So that's some good news, but being without him certainly hurt the Bulls down the stretch in this one. You saw them in terms of not struggling to score the basketball down the stretch. So, the Bulls also took another blow early on in this contest. It's worth noting that Kevin Huerter left early with an adductor injury. He would not return in this one. So the Bulls were ultimately down 7 guys. They were now without Coby White, Okoro, Kevin Huerter, who left the game early, Jalen Smith, Dalen Terry, Zach Collins, and Noah Asante. I mean, that's pretty darn shorthanded against what's believed to be one of the Eastern Conference's better teams. Being down 7 guys is wild. I don't care who you're playing, if it's on a back-to-back, if you're rested. 7 players shorthanded, that puts Billy Donovan in a really tough spot to kind of throw lineup combos out there. And guys, really filling in multiple voids that left the Chicago Bulls in this contest. So, I don't care if you're playing the Wizards or if you're playing, the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's a tough spot to be in, and the Magic are a formidable opponent, even without their best guy, Paolo Banchero. So, coming out of half, Julian Phillips would start in Kevin Huerter's place. Julian Phillips has kind of been the glue guy with all these injuries recently. The Bulls found themselves again in another tight contest. It would be their 14th clutch game this season. That's a ton. That's tied for the league's second most to this point in the early season. They are now 7-7 in such games following Monday night's close loss. So 500 in clutch games. You'd like to see the Bulls continue to kind of churn towards getting on the right track here. Winning close ball games go a long way for your team's confidence. The Bulls haven't done that in some time, dropping to 500 in clutch games. They started the year on a monster tear in terms of winning those clutch games. Have definitely come back down to earth since. Watching the game down the stretch, the Bulls really struggled to rebound the ball. You saw that in the lack of size that was out there for Chicago. They were getting eaten up on the boards, and that really helped the Magic get out in transition and score easy buckets there. So rebounding going to be key as we move into this next stretch of basketball. Hopefully the Bulls can get some reinforcements in terms of the injuries to help that matter there. Kind of looking at, and I want to dive into some of the numbers at the 20 game mark. The Bulls are currently on pace for 37 victories on the season. Now, it's not far off from what their win total was set at. I think that 37 victories is rather generous given how the trend is going of late, losing a lot of these ball games. But we'll see. Let's hope the Bulls can get on the right track. Winning ball games and staying competitive before the trade deadline, again, is going to be critical. I spoke to this all the way back in the offseason. The Bulls could find themselves in a precarious spot if they're not contending, and they have the tendency to kind of want to deal some of these players away. Now, there's a player who kind of goes against that entire notion, and I'll get into that in a little bit. There's some more surfacing trade rumors on that guy, but kind of looking at and diving into the numbers here, I just want to look at the data and what this kind of tells us. Looking inside some of these statistics, the Bulls rank 21st in offensive rating at 113.4. Their defensive rating is not much better at 116.8. They're 23rd in the league, so the bottom half of the league there. The Bulls are minus 3.4 in net rating. That ranks 21st in the NBA. One spot, and this comes as no surprise given the way they like to play, that they are successful in and that they are really flourishing, is pace. They're sitting at a mark of 104.5 in pace. That's second in the NBA. So they'll continue to look to kind of form their identity around playing with pace. Even with all of these injuries, they kind of put a wrinkle into what Billy Donovan likes and feels comfortable doing with his lineups there. The Bulls are also sixth in the NBA in assist percentage, so they really do a good job dishing the basketball, getting multiple guys involved. I mean, you really have no choice with all these injuries and not really a single superstar or go-to guy in any of these lineups outside of maybe Josh Giddey. I mean, Josh Giddey's had a monster start to the year. And then one that I thought was interesting, and it certainly has shown of late, the Bulls are tied for 27th in the league in opponent second chance points. They don't, and this comes hand in hand with not being able to rebound the ball efficiently. That number sits at 17.3 for an average of second chance points there for their opponents. Really in the bottom third of the league there when it comes to that. And it showed against Orlando. The Bulls need to do a better job. I don't know how they're going to do it. They need to start getting some of these guys healthy. Isaac Okoro was really the guy who was going to be their rebounding aficionado. So need to get Isaac Okoro back going the way he was supposed to be trending up toward the beginning of this season. They made a big move for him. That was their big move. They really got to get Isaac Okoro going. I cannot stress that enough. That's going to be a key factor moving forward for this ball club if he can start to produce, because they kind of put a lot of chips, not to say Lonzo Ball was a huge piece to the Bulls, but looking at the Bulls offseason as a whole, this was their biggest move, so they need to get their biggest guy and their biggest acquisition going. I think it'll just boost and build confidence for the rest of the roster. So looking at all these numbers, though, as a whole, they speak for themselves. Really, again, outside of pace, it's been a struggle through the early part of the season for Chicago when it comes to a lot of these metrics, and them really falling and crashing back down to earth after that 6-1 start is really starting to show. So looking at, we'll kind of switch over to a quick betting recap in this one. The over cashes rather easily down the stretch in the fourth quarter. I mean, it does help that there was a 75-point fourth quarter for the total, no doubt. I mean, that's a ton of points in that fourth quarter. The Magic winning that fourth quarter, ultimately 40-35. The Bulls covered the 8.5. I was not expecting that, I will say. I thought the Bulls would get tossed around in this one. They really fought and held their own in this contest. And with Kevin Huerter going down, it's even more impressive that some of these other guys stepped up and kept them in this ball game. But they come up short in the end, do cover that 8.5. Chicago played awesome all around, considering how shorthanded they were once again. And I think that outside of them dropping their fourth in a row and going winless on that road trip, you could take some positives around them being able to stick in this one with a really hot Orlando Magic team, a team that's been firing on all cylinders. So outside of Vooch, it's clearly obvious, though, the Bulls lack a true closer in games like these down the stretch. I mean, you can't, and I don't even know if let me know what you guys think in the comments, but I don't know if I consider Vooch a closer. I know he's had a couple game-winning shots this year, a couple game-winning threes, and monster closeout shots, but he just doesn't give me the vibe of a guy who you put the ball in his hands and you want to close it down like some of these other superstars can do in the league. So, we'll have to see how the Bulls shape this roster, and that kind of leads me into these rumors that continue to pick up for Chicago. Anthony Davis, the rumors continue to intensify. There have been a number of sources now that dipped into NBA Central and are talking about the fact that the Bulls are indeed discussing trading for Anthony Davis, and they have done that internally. According to Jamal Collier, this is indeed happening, which I don't know how I feel about this. I don't really want Anthony Davis in the fold here with a lot of these young guys, but it would not surprise me. It'd be the most Chicago Bulls thing to do, considering they've already had internal discussions about how to proceed. it really does not feel that far-fetched that they go and make a move for AD, and he's, come back home. I think that has a lot to do with it, but the age and the injuries just stand out to me as something that would really raise a flag in terms of what direction this franchise is trying to go, and they've already put themselves in position, even if it's not this year, of making moves and really bolstering this roster and this organization with young talent in the next draft and then in free agency this coming summer. So I don't know if this is the right dice to roll if you're Chicago and Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley. I can't imagine that they're going to give up too many assets to get a guy like Anthony Davis, given all the struggles he's had to stay on the floor. So they believe that ultimately when talking or looking at what the executives are saying, he could help the team's porous rim protection and defensive interior, something, again, that we saw just last night in Orlando. Both elements to the Bulls game that are really, really struggling. So he would certainly provide that. He'd be a good rim protector, would definitely bolster the defensive interior. Now, is this someone you want to mortgage a lot of assets into? I just don't know. I can't get behind that. Now, he certainly would be a boost right away, assuming he stays on the floor, but just looking at the bigger picture for this organization, I don't know if it aligns. According to other sources around the league, Chicago is looking to align with what Indy has done with Halliburton and Siakam. Now, Halliburton obviously down for this entire year, but the Bulls, according to multiple sources around the league and different people, feel that they have their Tyrese Halliburton and Josh Giddey. Now they have to do what they can to get their Siakam. So that's another interesting. I've known that the Bulls are trying to kind of mirror what Indy has done with a lower capital, lower spending in terms of just bringing in a ton of superstars, building through depth and youth, what Indy has done and what really carried them to the NBA Finals a year ago. So it's not surprising. That's their division rival. They're so close to the button with them in terms of seeing them play a bunch of basketball. So that blueprint has worked for Indy, not necessarily this year. They've really struggled, although that heartbreaker in Indy over the weekend for the Bulls really did sting. It's interesting to note that they think that Josh Giddey is their Tyrese Halliburton, looking to get that complimentary player. Now, is Anthony Davis really that guy? I can't get behind that. I don't know. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'd be curious to get some feedback on what you want the Bulls to do. I know there's already been, some initial reaction when I brought up Anthony Davis as to staying far, far away from a guy like that. That's kind of the boat I'm in, just given the age and all the flags with the injuries and where he's at in his career. Unless you can get him at an extreme discount without giving up a ton of assets in the future, I think that that's worth the roll of the dice. However, I just can't see him being flipped for almost nothing. Now, I know Nico Harrison's gone, and Dallas is in a bit of a crazy situation there right now, so who knows how that would go down, but we'd have to wait and see. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for joining me yet again for another episode of Bulls Latest. We got next up the Brooklyn Nets, a game really on paper that the Bulls should win at home. Maybe getting back in the United Center will help this team get off this schneid that they're on. One can only hope there. So thanks again, guys, for joining me on another episode of Bulls Latest. Your continual support has been awesome. Really much appreciated. We will see you guys next time.